Welcome back, baseball fans. Back to the fall league, the off season. The first round drafts are in. We'll give you the league's draft picks analysis and then take you into the fall league for 1981 to 1984. Right now, it's just the first round is all we have done today, and what a fascinating first round of the draft it has been. Just a recap of the general draft order. At the very top, you have St. Louis, the first pick in the draft. They also have the Commissioner Award for roster participation. Then you have the Ohio players who won the World Series. They'll draft 32nd. So let's get to draft results with the first overall pick in the draft. And this was based on the off-season blockbuster trades, combining a couple of seasons between St. Louis, San Diego, and Milwaukee Brewers. The St. Louis Cardinals select Raleigh Fingers, the first pick of the draft, with his 1981 card, a Brewer card. And in our replay, Raleigh Fingers becomes the first pick in the draft as an MVP and Cy Young winner in the strike year of 81. But he's a Cardinal, folks. The Cardinals sent Bruce Sutter to the Padres in the deal. And Milwaukee promoted a closer last year, Peter Ladd, for their role. And the closer merry-go-round also means that Goose Gossage will stay in New York. So that's pretty wild stuff around closers. An MVP, Cy Young winner. How often does that happen, folks, for a closer? It almost never happens, except a little later in this draft. But anyway, we'll go to the next team. The Cardinals Commissioner Award pick will also be announced at the end of this round before round 2 begins, because we have made it, and we'll get to that in a bit. But we'll go right to the Seattle pick in the draft, and this is not a slouch, folks. With the second pick in the draft, Seattle goes for Alvin Davis. Not a lot of people remember how magnificent Alvin Davis was in 1984. He had 27 dingers and a 284 average, 888 OPS. Great pick for the young Seattle Mariners, displacing Bruce Bochy, who was the first baseman, and they'll have to figure out how to reconfigure their team. They traded Tom Paciorek in the offseason so they could put Bochy in Paciork's spot in the outfield if needed. Picking third in the draft, we have the Dodgers, who had a really terrible year. Well, that's going to change, because they introduced Oral Hershiser to our league with a rookie card. 25-year-old Oral was 11-8 with a 2.66 ERA. 189 innings, just misses going on 3 days rest, but great pick for the Dodgers. He'll take Don Sutton's roster spot. Take his locker too, I think. The fourth team is Vegas. Wedding Vows in Vegas. They made an all-season splash, picking up 32-year-old Oscar Gamble, just to put tickets into the seats. Reconfiguring their ballpark to put a porch in right field so it can do the same damage he used to do with the Yankees. This Gamble has 18 homers and just 316 at-bats, so he's going to be a monster in Las Vegas. Next up, your Boston Red Sox picking fifth. And the Red Sox, oh boy, they made splashing trades in the offseason. They sent Fred Lynn to California while acquiring Tony Armas. They also created room in their starting rotation for a lefty, moving Jack O'Connor into the bullpen, and they got Tony Armas' 1984 card with his 43 home runs. My goodness, 43 dingers for Tony Armas. And John Tudor comes back to Boston. Please come back to Boston with a 3.27 ERA, can pitch on 3 days rest. It's hard to believe that the Red Sox had Tudor, Hurst, and Ojeda at one point, and they all went and found success elsewhere. Next, the Twins, taking the sixth pick of the draft. Oh boy, we got some rookies from 84, plus a holdover. Frank Viola's first big year is 1984, pitching on 3 days rest with a 3.21 ERA. He'll take Jerry Koosman's spot in this rotation. And Doug Corbett was added as their closer. That's just extending him for 4 more years. Doug Corbett with a California card. That's how you beat your opponents. You steal their players. Corbett was with Twin in 80-81. Eventually goes to California. Not so fast. Twins are holding on to him. Picking, let's see, 7th, is going to be the Mets. Oh, boy, folks. Okay, so this pick was turned in after 2 seconds without even looking at the needs or keeper list for this team. They could have 10 pitchers on this team with only 8 allowed. Doc Gooden's added with his brilliant 1984 card. He's 19 years old. He's pitching on 3 days rest. He's throwing to a 2.60 ERA. This is one of the greatest performances we've ever had in Strat. In 84 for Doc Gooden. Oh my goodness. And the Mets will just throw out the trash and clear room for young Doc to take the top spot in the rotation. Picking 8th, the Detroit Tigers. Tigers, oh, look at this. They made a couple deals in the offseason. They spent 2 draft tokens, not 1, but 2 to get Willie Hernandez to town from Portland. And they swapped corner outfielders, Steve Kemp for Johnny Grubb, added both. Willie Hernandez was an MVP and a Cy Young Award winner in 1984. That hasn't happened since 1981, when Riley Fingers did it. But anyway, 2 guys taken in the top 8 picks of the draft. My goodness, Willie Hernandez and Johnny Grubb. Holy smokes, folks. Picking 9th, your Pittsburgh Pirates. And they have a young star. I mean, they wanted to make somewhat of a splash. And you know what? They got a really nice pitcher here. Really good pitcher. Jose De Leon. His 83 card might be the first player from 1983 selected. Only pitched 108 innings. Really flashed, though, the 2.83 ERA. Really good pitcher. His best year in this timeline. And they need all the help they can get. They're really struggling in Pittsburgh. All right, the 10th pick of the draft is the Colorado Rockies, and they just brought back their savvy veteran Don Money, who at age 35 would have been a Milwaukee team. Really does bash 16 homers and 275 at-bats. So that's one of his best slugging years for Money. That's an 891 OPS for Don Money in Colorado. Picking 11th, your Texas Rangers. And they simply brought their guy, Buddy Bell, back to an 84 card. So that's a 4-year contract for Buddy Bell. That's an interesting case. You know, your guy's a keeper, but you're looking 4 years into the future for him as he goes from age 28 to age 32 to get that card. He's doing the same thing that Brett would do. Go from one great card, run it for 4 years, go to another great card, run it for 4 years. We had the 80 card for 4. The 84 card, almost as good. 315, 840 OPS. That's 8 great years of Buddy Bell in Texas. Next team up, your Florida Marlins. Oh, Pedro Guerrero was going to be the pick, and why? Because he is great in all 4 years. This pick took 4 minutes and 59 seconds to be made, at which the teams behind Florida already had names written on cards. They're about to jump the Marlins. They were just trying to decide which of the 4 years of Pedro Guerrero do we take. He's great in all of them. They finally settled on 83, a 298 average, a 904 OPS, the highest in the timeline. Great base stealer now with 23 stolen bases. He'll be the third baseman. They're saying keep him out of the outfield. Just let him play third base regardless of how bad his defense is. Just leave our guy alone. Baltimore on the clock. And oh my, the pitching-rich Orioles. Do they confirm Flanagan or McGregor? Nope, they just had a 20-game winner named Mike Boddicker in 1984. Their only decision was, do you go 83 or 84? 84, you can pitch on 3 days rest, and it's a 4-year contract instead of a 3-year contract. 114 whip. Mike Boddicker, welcome to Baltimore. This effectively means that one of those lefties Flanagan or McGregor will go to the bullpen, which is really intriguing for the Orioles, as they have Jim Palmer and a very good Dennis Martinez in the rotation already. All right, the San Diego Padres. Oh, my, folks. So we have our first carry-on improvement here. The Padres, with their first pick, didn't add a player. They just improved Tony Gwynn, and I'll show you how this converts here. This number here means he's carrying on a carry-on player. We're going to put him in his 1984 card, where he's hitting .351 and a 1 in the outfield. That's the Tony Gwynn everybody remembers. And this notation here simply means that 8203 means that in undrafted free agency, the Padres are going to have to add a player from the year 1982 to the roster to be the 20th player on the roster. If the draft ends this way, the Padres only have 19 players. While they were at it, folks, making a double splash, they have the rights to Kevin McReynolds. And as we often say, you can take 2 players at once. If you have the rights to the second player, it just speeds up the draft. So their 5th round pick will be Kevin McReynolds. He's a 1 in center field. Gwynn's a 1 in right field. Oh my, the Padres really making a big improvement with those 2 players. Next up, the Expos. These picks aren't sexy, but they have 2 guys at once, just like they did, but in the year of 82. Rudy May has been going back and forth from the rotation to the bullpen in the last few teams he has played for. The Expos have been in constant flux. If you follow the history of the franchise with left-handed starting pitchers, a ton of righties. The Expos probably have the deepest right-handed farm system, starting pitching-wise, in the whole sport. Lefties, on the other hand, it's difficult. You had Baylor Moore in the early 70s. Ross Grimsley had a nice year in the late 70s. Dan Schatzeder was probably the best guy. But Rudy May is going to be their number 3 starter behind Rogers and Gullickson. And they're going to, since they lost Tim Wallach, when they won the World Series, they somehow lost the rights to Tim Wallach. He was poached by the Astros, since traded to the Dodgers. So they don't have Wallach in the 1980s, sadly, for the Expos. So they're going to keep holding on to Larry Parrish and let him play third base the rest of his career here. 82, 727 OPS, but more importantly, he's still a 2 defensively at third base. Good glove at third base still for Larry Parrish, staying with the Expos. The White Sox, they made some moves in the offseason. Oh boy, folks. They went out and got Fisk, and so they decided simply to go to the year of 1983 and find, that was their playoff year, who was the best contributors. And they went, of course, with Fisk, with the best year of the 4. 289, 874, 26 dingers for Fisk. And then it was a real competition for the other 83 guy between Floyd Bannister, Britt Burns, and Ron Kittle. And they decided on Kittle simply because that's the only year he's any good. With his 35 home runs, Floyd Bannister and Britt Burns do have other years that are very good. 82 for Bannister, 81 for Burns. So that's the rationale as to how you get all 3 in good spots. 35 dingers, 26 dingers, and suddenly the White Sox, they were a little power deficient last year. They only had 20 homers out of Chambliss and Harold Baines. But now they got some more beef in there with Fisk and Kittle. Atlanta Braves, how about adding 2 rookies from the year 84, plus one of them is poached from another farm system. Juan Samuel, no longer a Philly, poached away. He becomes an Atlanta Brave. They're closing their eyes to the defense. When he goes out into the field, they're going to ignore what happens when he plays defensively at second base, which is what Philadelphia wanted to do. But the Braves are saying, we just love that stick and speed. 72 stolen bases, 15 triples, 36 doubles, 19 home runs. Everything's there except a terrible glove. Maybe they can make him a designated hitter. something that was not available in the National League in this timeline. And Steve Bedrosian. This makes Atlanta the best bullpen in the sport, even better than the Yankees, because they've got 4 closers, folks. They have Rick Camp, they have Kevin Soche, they have Gene Garber, they have Steve Bedrosian. Here's the kicker. It's 84, so it's a 4-year contract for Bedrosian. The 3 previous guys are all in the 81 year, which means at the end of the season, they lose them all. Camp will be a free agent. Garber will be a free agent. Soche will be a free agent. The Braves are expected to re-sign Rick Camp. The other 2 will be gone. All right, next up, the Toronto Blue Jays. Oh, boy, another rookie stud. Boy, 84. Folks, if you got a chance to get individual card set season, go for 1984. If you have your money on 80 and can have your choice of 81, 2, 3, and 4, I'm telling you, 84 is the season to take. You got some performances in that year. George Taco Bell, 26 dingers, 292, 824 OPS. He's the piece. I mean, now the Blue Jays are expected to compete for the division. They're not going for wild card. They're not going for 500. No. They're going for the whole division here. In the American League East, the Yankees are going to start fading. Baltimore will get older. We don't know about the Red Sox yet. They should improve by 85. So this division is up for grabs. Hard to believe. We finally moved into an era where the Toronto Blue Jays are playing in the American League East and the division is up for grabs. Mid-late 80s, early 90s, it's Toronto's division, and the other guys are also around. But that's how the sport transforms. All right, your Arizona Diamondbacks. Oh, this is just soul-crushing for the Chicago Cubs fans out there. Little side note, I went to Arizona and went to a spring training game between the Cubs at PDE Park, whatever the hell the thing is called, and the Giants. And this was right after Ryne Sandberg became the $6 million man. I think it was 1991 or 1990. Got Will Clark's autograph from the Giants at the game. Anyway, Cubs lost the rights to Ryne Sandberg. And Arizona promotes him. They had his 82 card drafted a few years ago. They get to promote him into his 84 season. It's not going to be with the Cubs. It's going to be with Arizona. 314, 887 OPS, MVP, I believe. I'm just saying he's the MVP. I don't know if he actually was or not. Probably should have been. Almost went to the World Series. Probably were a better team than the Padres that did go to the World Series. But anyway, Ryne Sandberg is an Arizona Diamondback for the next 4 years with a stunning card. That might be the one player that could give Arizona the top seed. They haven't done anything in this sport. They might actually be the division favorite now. They also traded for and got Jim Morrison away from the White Sox, who was fading there. Has a nice year with the Pirates in 84 with a 286, 782 OPS. Can play multiple infield positions. Also, Sandberg was playing third base. Now, of course, he's playing second base. Next up, Kansas City Royals. You know it's going to be Brett. So, if you've been following our carryover league, you understand that we've had the 1976 George Brett batting champion for 4 years. Swapped it out for the 1980 George Brett 390 card for 4 years. So George Brett has been averaging a 363 batting average for the last 8 years. That is not a joke. That's the fun of the carryover league, because your Hall of Famers become Hall of God kind of players. We decided to go with 83 George Brett at age 30. The best muscle in the timeline of 81-84 as he starts getting up there in years. We love the slugging. 563 slugging, 947 OPS. Defense, he's a 337. I don't know what happened there. And against lefties, he's only about a 270 hitter. But he absolutely demolishes right-handed pitching, a staple of his career. And the other little tidbit here is they had the rights in the farm system to Craig McMurtry, who actually was Atlanta. Atlanta had no room for a right-handed starter, so the Royals poached him from Atlanta's farm system. He has a really nice season in 1983. It would be the only good season of his career. Pitching on 3 days rest, 3.08 ERA with a 1.30 WHIP. That's a nice little pick. Your Cubs. Well, this is a run-it-back kind of Cubs team. They're going Buckner. Just 1 year ahead. He was the 1980 batting champion, so they went for the 81 Buckner. He's still hitting 310. And they also made a trade in the offseason to get another shortstop. They keep adding shortstops on a year-to-year basis. They lost to Jesus. Last year they had Mark Belanger. Now they have Bucky Dent. Bucky Dent's glove. Yankees didn't want him anymore. And the Cubs are always looking for good defense at shortstop. His batting average is not there, but he's got great defense. Bucky Dent and Bill Buckner for your Cubs. California Angels, it's new guys. They had the rights to Mark Langston. Oh, poor Seattle. Lost out on that. That's what bad teams do. They lose their stars. So Langston ends up with the Angels, taking that Jeff Zahn role, the lefty role behind Ken Forsch and Mike Witt. And, of course, they made a deal to get Fred Lynn. We mentioned this earlier in the Tony Armas in that big, huge outfielder swap where Armas went to Boston and Lynn went to the Angels. The Angels sent somebody to Oakland. Big trade. Mark Langston and Freddie Lynn, 4-year deals for the California Angels. The Angels desperately need left-handed hitting. They get it. And they need a left-handed pitcher, and they get it. Milwaukee Brewers, this is kind of a little no-brainer territory here. Cecil Cooper, he hit 352 in 1980, the American League MVP. Whoops, no. Didn't get it because, well, George Brett at 390. Most of the time you hit 352, you're going to be the MVP, but he didn't get it. But in 81, he hits 320. So they take the next best Cooper card, and that's all they do. They defer. When teams are only taking one guy, it means they're still undecided on what the other pick would be, and so they're just going to wait. They still have protection. They're not going to lose out on talent. They just have to decide on which talent to take. When it's obvious, like for instance, in the case of Kansas City, there wasn't a lot of good talent available in 1983 other than McMurtry, so they just announced it now to save time in the draft. Giants on the clock. Oh my goodness, folks. Oh my goodness. And what seems to be unfair but is completely, totally fair, the Giants, they had 1980 Jack Clark, and they just give him a 4-year deal with his 84 card. As a 320 hitter now, the best year because of injury, only 249 plate appearances. You got a 971 OPS out of Jack Clark for 4 years in San Francisco. He's 28 years old. Don't get rid of him. Don't get rid of him. I'm telling you, Giants, don't trade this guy. And, oh, by the way, because it's the year 84, they have a rookie in their system, Dan, the man from Gladden. Yep, before he was a Twin, he played for, you guessed it, the San Francisco Giants in 1984. Ace stealer, 351 batting average. Doesn't stop there. Dude draws walks. 410 on base. Jack Clark, 434 on base. And the Giants are deciding they're going to try and run away and hide to the National League West, as we saw the Dodgers mysteriously fading. The Padres made some nice moves, of course, with McReynolds and Gwynn. And we haven't seen the Astros yet, but the Giants look scary. All right. The New York Yankees. They could do just about anything here. And they simply, well, they can only do one thing. It's called BPA. Best player available. They went out and traded for Mike Easler, who's a stud. They still have Reggie. They're going to get Reggie in his 82 card. They have Tommy John. He's nice and all that. Brigetti, Goss, etc. So on. Ron Guidry. Nope. Got to go for Mattingly's. They passed on 1983, of course. They jumped right to 1984. Your 1E6, 343 hitting, 918 OPS, first baseman Don Mattingly. You see what I'm saying, folks? 1984, Don Mattingly, Dan Gladden, Mark Langston. We saw Gwynn, Armas with 43 homers. My goodness. And if you're a Tigers fan, they start out the season 35-5. Next up, your Cleveland Indians. And, oh, wow. Yep. Yeah. With all the splash you've seen earlier, you might miss the incredible flash here. But they add, Terry Francona wasn't really associated with Cleveland in the timeline. But because your commissioner likes to have a lot of fun doing this league, we understand that Mr. Francona managed the Cleveland Indians. So we gave him the rights to him to Cleveland. Oh, by the way, at age 25, Terry Francona hits 346, 828, can play first and left field, and he will lead the Cleveland Indians in hitting. And they also added a really nice George Vukovich card. He actually was a Cleveland Indian at age 28. It really was the only year he blossoms. 304 average in a platoon in the outfield. So these are great picks, but we've seen a lot of splash earlier. So, yeah. Portland. Deciding to run it back. Portland's been very successful in the last few years. One of the big reasons is that they got Jerry Royce away from the Dodgers. This might be one of the bigger reasons why the Dodgers have faded so miserably, is that they lost Fernando and Jerry Royce from that Dodger team, replacing them with Rick Honeycutt and others. And they miss him. They desperately miss Jerry Royce, and Portland reaps those rewards. He's great in 1980, so they take this very next year, 1981. He's getting up there in age, though. He's 32. He'll have like 3 or 4 more good years before he starts to fade. Will play into his 40s, interestingly. And they also add Chet Lemon, who they've had, stolen away from the White Sox, with a 300 season in 1981. The Big Red Machine, they're doing similar stuff to what Portland's doing, continuing where they were, and they picked up Griffey. Ken Griffey goes from his 1980 to his 81 card. The best of the next 4 years before he starts a decline. So 81 Griffey hits 311. Did they make another move in that year? No, they did not. All right, we're down to the final 4. These are teams that were runners-up in the League Championship Series, beginning with the Oakland A's. What is Oakland going to do? They lost Tony Armas in the offseason, so they don't have the big 3 outfielders anymore. But Ricky Henderson's contract was up, so it's pretty obvious that Ricky Henderson would be their first pick. Yeah, so no-brainer. You go from 1980 Ricky Henderson. You skip a AAA Steeler, which I'm not crazy about. To me, it's like AA to AAA. Trying to take advantage of that is very hard in the league. But we like the 84 Henderson because he's 458 slugging, folks. He's got 16 dingers. Henderson will get 20-something later in the 80s, early 90s with Oakland and the Yankees. I think at Toronto maybe as well, but 857 OPS for Henderson with a 458 slugging. Still a AA Steeler, of course. That's obvious. And 86 walks, a little down on the walks maybe, but... And they also improved Tony Phillips. He was brought into the league a year ago with his 83 card. It wasn't very good, folks. 84 wasn't available yet, of course. So now that 84 is available, Tony Phillips will get a better card. Now hitting 266. He's totally capable as a full-time player now. So the 83-04 will have to be replaced at the end of the draft. Interestingly, so far we've had 3 carryover improvements. Tony Gwynn, Ryne Sandberg, and Tony Phillips. A little drop-off there for the third guy. Okay, next up, Houston. Oh, boy. So, back then, there was free agency, and an outrageous Dodger team lost Sutton. Well, they had the last laugh, because after losing Sutton's last year in L.A. in 1980, the 81 Dodgers win the World Series without him anyway. There's a ha thing there. And Don Sutton, that says, whatever, I'm done. He got no run support. If you've been following the channel with his early 70s card, still no run support in the fall league. He's done with the Dodgers. We saw the Dodgers picking way early in this draft because they've struggled last 2 seasons. Maybe they do the exact same thing. Maybe they win the World Series now with adding whoever they added. I can't even remember who they added. Who the Dodgers add, folks? Was it? It was Hershiser. Yeah, maybe Oral Hershiser. Add him to the 1981 Dodgers that won the World Series. Is that good enough to get a World Series win? Maybe. But anyway, his year in Houston for Don Sutton, 261 earned run average, and capitulate 3 days rest because of the year of the strike. Okay, and did he add somebody else in 81? Yes, so Sambito. So it's a combination of Sutton and Sambito, arguably the two best pitchers on the Astros in 1981, not named Nolan Ryan. Sambito's last really good year as a closer. He'll split duties with Dave Smith. And the Astros will continue to have... Last year they had 4 guys with sub-2 ERAs when you add in J.R. Richard. This year just 3. Just Ryan, Dave Smith, and Joe Sambito. No J.R. Richard. All right, World Series runner-up, Philadelphia Phillies. And you're thinking, surely this team is going to be in decline, right? I mean, they've been to 3 World Series in 6 years, lost them all. They're ancient, you know. Pete Rose, and IRL MLB 83 Phillies went out and got Joe Morgan and Tony Perez to try and bring the big old red machine back, or the big ancient red machine to Philadelphia. Didn't. Got them to the World Series. No, this ancient Philadelphia team decides, we're going 84. Jeff Stone, 23 years old. He only hits .362 and is a double-A stealer and cannot catch a fly ball. You could put Lonnie Smith and Jeff Stone in the outfield with Gary Maddox in center, Larry Herndon in right. Go with 4 outfielders like you do in slow-pitch softball, and these guys would still be 4-16s and left. This is going to be fun to watch. Jeff Stone and Lonnie Smith, at least for 1 year, they're going to be teammates in Philadelphia. That will be hilarious when they take the field defensively. Somebody's got to play left field. They might actually alternate DH and left field between innings just for fun. But Stone's .362, again, this is BPA. He'll be better than Lonnie Smith, who hit .324. So that's why Stone was announced first. And no other pick announced for the Phillies. And last, tonight, got to spend a little time as a homage to the Ohio Players. Just a reminder, the Ohio Players, a fictional team put together just for fun, just to add expansion to our league, putting teams in Portland, as you saw, a team in Las Vegas, and a team in Ohio. Interesting picks for the Ohio Players. If you follow the Fall League, I got to tell the story of Vida Blue. He has been a first-round pick 4 times for 2 franchises. He was a first overall pick with his 71 card. Oakland traded him to the Ohio Players. He became the first overall pick for them in the 72-75 season. And he became the first overall pick for them in the 73-76 season when they improved the 75 card to the 76 card. So Vida Blue has been the first pick in the draft 3 different times in his career. Here he's a first-round pick, but he's the 32nd pick in the draft. 2.45 ERA in his last great year for Vida Blue. And also, they in the same season, why not, Mike Norris, your World Series MVP, 3 starts. In our World Series, the ace will start games 1, 4, and 7 most times. If you win all those games, you're most likely going to be the MVP. We've seen some pitchers do that in the past, Mike Norris being the most recent. He barely hangs in there at age 26 and 81. His ERA is .375. But he's really good against lefties like he was in 1980. And it's really almost bittersweet to understand that Norris's career is running out because of arm injuries. So, a little bittersweet. Ohio Players are going to try and go back-to-back with Vida Blue and Mike Norris. Will it work? Odds would really be stacked against him, particularly after trading Mike Easler in the offseason for Gary Matthews. But that's it for the 32 picks in the first round of the draft. At this time, I can announce the 33rd pick, which is the Commissioner Award. And let me explain how the Commissioner Award works. The Commissioner Award pick, if I have let me see if I got the up here. if you are the team that utilizes the commissioner award is given to the team that has the least used hitter and the least used pitcher. You multiply their plate appearances by their innings pitched. The team who has the highest amount wins the commissioner award, which is the compensation pick, the 33rd pick in the draft between round 1 and round 2. Most of the time, it's the team that plays the most games and the team that's close to 500 because they just missed the playoffs and they aren't drafting in the top 10. So most of the time, it's a 15 and 15, 15 and 16, 16 and 15 team. In this case, it's an 8 and 19 Cardinal team. They just loaded up with their relievers and rotated their offense. So we're going to show you what they took with the compensation pick. And got to go back up to St. Louis here. And it's an intriguing pick. So I can scratch this out. They've made the choice. And this is how you do this, folks. The Cardinals took, now don't laugh, they took the 1982 version of Bruce Hurst. He's 3-7. He's got a 5.77 ERA and a 171 WHIP. Well, guess what, folks? This card is not going to be used by the Cardinals. What this pick did is steal a player. He talked about stealing players away. He's been stolen away from the Red Sox, who had the rights to him in 1983 and 1984, but they did not have the rights to him in 1982. So step 1 of the process is get the player, and then in the undrafted free agency, you can improve or replace cards, and that's what the Cardinals will plan to do. They'll get him with his 84 card where he can pitch on 3 days rest. So that's the plan, and the Red Sox, unfortunately, are throwing their hands up in the air as they don't get to enjoy Bruce Hurst in Boston. But the Red Sox shed no tears. They still have Tudor, and they still have Bob Ojeda and Jack O'Connor. So they still have their complement of lefties, but they did lose one of them, Bruce Hurst. So that concludes the first round of the draft and the Commissioner Award. And then the next pick in the second round will also be the St. Louis Cardinals. They'll have more players than the other teams, and will have their draft done 1 round sooner. So thanks for checking out first round draft results. We'll see you next time.